Hey, welcome back. We're going to do a video on using markers today, and I'm using a permanent marker now to draw a couple shapes. And here we'll do something that's a little different. And like I said before, you can do a whole sheet of these and then just draw lines in between that makes more shapes. You can fill your whole page like that and color it in. But if you are one of my classroom students, your page in your packet looks a little bit like this. And if that's the assignment that you're doing, that's what we're going to talk about. So if you can find some markers, that's what we want you to try to work with. If you don't have any markers, you can use a ballpoint pen. And if you absolutely don't have any markers, you can go ahead and do it with colored pencils too. But I'd like you to try markers if you can. Now, I've got a couple different types of markers. We've got water-based markers. Your Crayola markers are typically water-based markers. My markers have a tip like that. That's called a conical tip. So you can do thick lines and you can do thin lines. Now, when you color these in, it's kind of nice to go the same direction, and then you don't get a lot of overlap because the water-based markers, now that's not too bad. Let me show you another example. The water-based markers, let's color this in right here. If I'm not careful how I do it, it starts to dry, and then if I try to go back over, see how it's getting darker and kind of blotchy looking? So with the water-based markers especially, you have to try to go over it one direction, and even if I go back over it, there's so much water in this. If I have just regular paper, eventually it will erode the paper and it starts to crumble up. But it does get darker. Now, we also have permanent markers, and there's an advantage to permanent markers. And again, I have a sheet of paper underneath here. Water-based markers generally do not soak through the paper. However, permanent markers do. Except the permanent markers generally color in a whole lot more smoothly than water-based markers do. Okay, now when we're down to a point, you gotta just barely touch so you get that thin line in there. And then once you get away from the point, you see how the permanent markers, you can overlap a little bit more than you can with the water-based markers. You still get some blotching, but it generally, they dry a lot more evenly than the water-based markers do. So what I want you guys to do is either do one of these pages and fill the whole page, or find a coloring book, or do your marker page. And then email me or take a picture of it and send it to me. And let's see how they look. All right, have fun with your art.